Welcome back to session 60. And in the previous two sections, we interpreted the term the Tao is used for inaction, which is basically, uh, I personally believe it is more about the so-called inaction is more about minimize the meaningless interventions and try not to act like a Don Quixote. So you really want to identify the trend to change in the specific environment that the action is intended. Make sure you have, you know, the majority ready for change, or at least either they are uh, motivated with incentives, or they are actually clearly aware of, uh, the I guess the actions that has to they everyone has to be in on, cornered, forced, or motivated, whatever reason, uh, so that it would become something that everybody would have to participate, whether they like it or they don't like it. But, it's like a forced or motivated situation that your action would basically just, at least appear to be just go along. Of course, the, better yet would be the action taken maybe has something to do, initiate, but people, take those initiatives as their own, and that'd be probably even better, right? So it's not about it, you sit on your ass, don't do nothing, but, you know, uh, the timing, right? So the timing of the action. So otherwise, you would do things with little effect, if any, or at least, it just does not seem likely to, I guess, produce much effect with all the efforts, right? So I guess, my personal taking on the personal take on the inaction, because that's, I guess, a very uh, important term that I think most Chinese in China today have heard about this inaction term, but a lot of people, uh, their understanding of that, became like, oh, I don't have to do nothing. So that's why I try to emphasize, on the term inaction. But in any case, in this session, the second half of that sentence was about, to set example by to lead, with the example you set by your own, I guess, behavior. Um, the whole point is, save the lecture, because a lot of time, I guess, once again, this is my own personal take. I think this is really somehow trying to offer a little hint on, how Confucianism worked in China, the ancient China, how it worked was pretty much edification, which is basically lots of lecture again, everywhere, and it mounted to a certain pressure. Did it work? Yes, it did. But that's a whole lot of edification, and of course, let alone education dominantly, because the education back then in ancient China was pretty much for those who were determined to become a member of this, I guess, the gentleman class, become, to get into the circle of the Chinese elites. Um, that was the education system, but the edification system was more for the general masses, illiterate. So back to the Taoist, how do you, basically, I guess, save all the lecture, but set by example? Well, I guess it's let's put it this way: if you're looking at a society very well edified already, the basic values of I guess ethics already pretty well aware of by almost everyone or most members of the society. So there's no need for lecture, right? They already know. They just basically, they're all behaving accordingly. So that's a base, that's a precondition or prerequisite, whatever. Just, basically, I think that's something. Otherwise, you set a great example of all those noble, behaviors, but what if those people just basically laugh at you either behind your back or in your face? And that happened, right? Um, I I don't know if I should say that because don't really I really don't want to make a lot of people unhappy because I visit China pretty frequently and lots of time. From what I noticed, I think there, in general, there is a lack of, I guess, edification of the basic, ethics given, at the elementary school level. All the students were taught, but just somehow, a lot of things you see, I guess there's three levels in ancient Chinese society. In the better, I guess, times back then, when all the members of society, they all behave, accordingly on their, well aware, well edified ethics. Of course, people used to behave really well. And for that, obviously that was, next to ideal situation. But then, when in certain, I guess, times, the historical period, when people, their ethic, the awareness, I guess, came down to the lower level, that's where the edification, became even more critically important for the royal courts and their government agencies to do their part, try to promote the core values, right? And let's just say, in the worst situation of the societies in the historical period of various empires and dynasties, what happened then, the harsh punishment in accordance to the criminal codes would then be introduced, right? So theoretically, both the Taoism and the Confucianism, they both recognize that in a society where the virtues are well promoted and so behaved in accordance, the harsh punishment of criminal codes would not be necessary, right? So this basically tells you the relationship between the two. If and we look at the society in Japan, for a, I guess, case in point on this one, the social pressure is on all the time, everywhere, right? You don't really need the law to really punish for a lot of things. Let's say you just dump the wrong trash because the Japanese started this sorted garbage thing very long time ago. I remember the first time I was in Tokyo, and I stayed with a friend, and I wanted to be, being a Chinaman, wanted to be, uh, I guess, productive, to contribute, to do, my part. So I was like, okay, let me grab this trash and take it to the garbage place. And what I didn't know was in Tokyo, every day there's one specific type of sorted trash to go out every day. They send the trash out to the appointed place of garbage collection, except for one certain kind. I believe back then was like five different kinds on five of each weekdays. I could be wrong. This was like more than 30 years ago. But anyway, my friend was so, panicking. Oh my God, you put the wrong one out. And I was like, oh, okay. So what's the big deal? Imagine the neighbor's face, and they might just even come out and say it to you. I mean, that's just, not, it was unbelievable, anyone would do that. So when you have such a social pressure set out there against everyone, but also, participated by everyone, you don't need a law, right? And so let's just all, stick with the Asian society. And then let's look at Singapore. Let's look at Singapore. If you did this in the street speeding, right? You spit. I don't remember exactly how much, but I think it was like a $50 fine back then. And the funny part or interesting part is, I never saw a policeman anywhere in Singapore, but supposing if you did anything wrong, you would see them right away because people report on you, right? So, of course, the Singapore citizens, they obviously they have very high standards of ethics too, but the criminal code works really well there, right? And then basically we talked about Japan, Singapore, right? I've never been to Taiwan. I know one day I was going to travel to Taiwan, and then this COVID-19 happened, so I canceled the trip. But I really cannot talk about Taiwan because I haven't been there, right? But then I've traveled extensively in China. By nature, I would say a lot of Chinese, and I think this is the residue of the Confucianism, still there somehow, because they had been there for over 1,000 years, or longer. Only the modern history kind of removed, or contemporary history removed that, or try to remove that. There's some, thing here and there left. So by nature, people are nice, but the way they act, I would say a little bit different from the society, at least when I was a little child. So, yeah, I guess. Do you think the Chinese government lecture a lot? Of course, of course they do there. But do they have the laws? Yes. Do they use the laws to actually punish? They do and then they don't. Well, if it's something against the communist government, yeah, you bet you'll be punished. But very little teeny tiny things you would observe, right? And kind of get you to think. My son-in-law traveled. He's not a Chinese by I guess DNA, or he's white, and he traveled to China several times, and then one time I was like, oh, well, we can't do this. And he's like, oh, what I noticed, this is what he told me. What I noticed when he says no parking, you will see the car, park right there, right next to that no parking sign. And where it says, no smoking, you see people just pick up the cigarette and smoke. All these are supposed to be under the penalty, criminal code. And because I guess people, one, they don't care, and two, they don't get punished, so people get away from that. So I guess how I would relate this to the Taoism teaching said, I guess if you have the government officials and those supposed to be Chinese elite today who has a lot of money and a bunch of degrees, of course, I don't question where the money or degree come from or, whatever. Just say we respect those people as the elite, right? And if they act, in line with the code, not a criminal code, but the ethic code, the code of conduct, then I think they could set some really good examples, right? In these days, it's like 100 millions of Chinese as tourists travel around the world. So we all get to see a lot of them. And we see them, you know, doing their purchases at the very luxury items, those kind of exclusive brand stores, uh, act like they're robbing the store. Of course, they pay, but it's just like it's such a rush, right? So we all presume, yes, they've got the money, right? So when you see someone buying a watch for like 200,000 US dollars, you're like, Jesus Christ. Or the brand name purse at the price, that's like, wow. But do they show the behaviors that people are all over the world outside China actually would act the same way? No. So what does that tell you? This is what I'm talking about. Set examples. Lectures, apparently there are a lot of lectures in China. It does not appear to be working. And then they have lots of criminal codes, for this and for that. I don't know what's going on there. What I noticed, there are a lot of fake medicines. I mean, think about that. When people take the fake medicine, the best could happen is it didn't work, but it didn't kill you. But some did, right? And then the food, okay, just to knock the cost down, they put a lot of really really bad chemicals in there, stuff like that. That's just like where's the the basic ethics, right? What you're doing. So from what I heard, the farmers do a lot of things in that country, to the point they don't want to buy those produce of their own, from their own farm, but they sell it to others. But then this is a vicious circle. When the farmers did this to the people in urban societies in China, they will eventually, I guess, learn to get by getting a taste of their own medicine, because when they send their kids to the schools and then they found out the professors may or may not be focusing all the attention and taking all the time to do the right thing, but pretty busy making a lot more money than the humble salaries by doing this and that, right? So their kids don't really get the real quality educations. And a lot of things I could cite as the examples uh, in the contemporary China. There are a lot of great things, positive things. So I'm not like the mainstream media in the West. Everything they talk about the contemporary China is all negative. It, well, if you're a Taoist, there's no such thing as all bad or all good, right? So there's always two sides. So I'm not bad mouthing about the contemporary China. If China is so bad, why do you think those 100,000 Chinese travel around the world? They don't stay, where they were visiting, but they all return back to China. Apparently, hey, it must be good enough for them to stay, right? They didn't try to do what the old Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc countries does this defect, right? They don't defect from that system. So apparently there's something good enough for them to go back to. Okay, so I guess they accepted that social reality, as acceptable. But of course, when we visit China, it might take us a little time to adjust, to get used to, right? But hey, we don't live there. If it worked for them, that's okay. I mean, why would that bother you? You're just on a visit. You're gonna go, and you live in a totally different place. But then when the Chinese came out, right, traveled, through our little places, I guess we would expect them to respect, what the social custom, the this and that in this society. Just like when we visit them in their society, whatever it is, it did not make sense to us. But hey, we don't live there, right? That is their society. So anyway, back to the original point. Set example is very important. I think that starts all the way from the people supposedly they were well educated or better educated, and they had a lot more exposures to a lot of good things, and they're supposed to be elite, right? So I'll give you an example, by my own observation. The metro, I forgot what they call it in Beijing or Shanghai. Uh, this what we call metro. If you're in New York, or the underground train, in Beijing, I found out that at a certain, a lot of stations, where you get on, get off the metro train. If this is very tourist, oriented place, so a lot of the Chinese tourists from other cities or whatever, when they were riding the metro in Beijing, you would see a lot less older, you know. But when you are at very, local traffic oriented, especially at what they call the CBD, which is the Central Business District, near those places or around those places, you would see the passengers, much more orderly. They really respect the rules a lot more. So I think this is a good example. Basically, when you look around, right, you observe, you see how other people behave, then you realize, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to cut the lines, right? One time I was in Beijing airport, on my way back to the US. There was a young girl just passed me and a lot of people and went all the way to the front. And I was just really pissed because it was very crowded, a lot of us there in line. And this young girl just came right through and went all the way to the front. So I actually walked to the front and grabbed that girl. I said, do you see everybody, staying in line? What makes you think you can just cut line? We're all basically spending our time here Don't you think we have a reason to be in a hurry? But we're in line. Why not you? And I was shocked when that girl turned around and looked at me and very like, that was a good reason. Very proudly say, to say that to me, like that would justify. She said, I'm a Korean. I said, really? So in Korea, nobody gets in line? Really? Is that the reason? Go back there. And she just had to, you know, go back. I don't know if she got in line or she tried somewhere else, but here's the point. When you see the example set, everybody got in line, and there's still some people who just don't. Oh, because I'm a Korean or I'm whatever. That doesn't justify anything, right? So let's say you have something that's an emergency. You carry a sick baby. Of course, everybody would, understand, and they will yield the space and basically let you pass, let you get to the front. So that's what I mean by setting the example, right? And lead by example. So yeah, and that remember that case in the metro system in Beijing. Why does it make sense? Which station you would see people more orderly, which not? That the same rules apply, right? The same law, same lecture, everything. Because in China, when you ride in the elevators in the metro station, you would hear uh, the public announcement, the loudspeaker all the time playing out this. And, dear Chinese citizen, when you are riding the metro, please respect the rules and obey the rules. And, have your good behaviors. It's like they're lecturing the pupils in elementary school. That sort of thing. So yeah, the lectures all over, and then you see the rules. Know this, know that. They don't bother to say, oh, please don't do this. Please don't. No, they go, know this, know that, or face the penalty. It doesn't even work, right? So set example. That's what I mean. And I will wrap up here for this session. Until then, ciao.